At the Fort Bragg firing range, my father, a retired colonel, roared in front of my soldiers. A sergeant's salary is barely enough for dog food. He thought he was putting his failed daughter in her place. He didn't know I was already investigating the criminal conspiracy. He was running a conspiracy that cost soldiers their lives and was about to cost him everything. My name is Carrie Bishop, Sergeant First Class, U.S. Army. My world that day was the oppressive, wet blanket heat of a North Carolina firing range. It wasn't the heat that was suffocating me, but the hostile silence from my own soldiers. The whispers coiled through the humid air. That's Colonel Bishop's daughter. Bet she got a free pass. They saw only a name, a legacy, an appendage, then they saw him. My father, retired Colonel Leland Bishop, a titan here at Fort Bragg, strode toward the firing line with the unshakable self-assurance of a god. In his world, there were officers and then there was everyone else. I was in the latter. He didn't lower his voice. The performance was the point. Carrie Ann, he began, a cruel smirk on his lips. I hear you're still playing this little soldier game of yours. Tell me, he continued, his voice dripping with condescension. Is a sergeant's salary enough for dog food these days? He then turned to a handful of young privates, pointing a finger directly at me. Take a good look, men, a perfect textbook example of wasted potential. She had a slot at West Point. She could have been an officer instead. She chose to be an enlisted grunt. A hot, scalding wave of shame washed over me. Every eye was on me, waiting for me to shatter. They were about to be disappointed. I didn't give my father another glance. I turned my back on him and faced the target 100 meters away. My world narrowed to the front sight post. Discipline is a fortress. 5 shots. 5 explosions ripping through the strained silence. 5 holes. So close together they looked like a single ragged tear in the center of the bull's eye. A different kind of silence fell, one of shocked, grudging respect. I lowered my weapon and turned. The mask of the great Colonel Bishop was gone, replaced by pure, unfiltered shock. He recovered quickly, but I saw it, the unmistakable glint of unease, in that moment. A decision formed in the quietest, coldest part of my mind. This game he loved to play. The one where I was always the loser. I was going to end it that night. The memory of his contempt was a physical presence in my small apartment. It pulled me back 17 years to the day he tore up my college fund check. I had just been accepted to UNC Chapel Hill, but I told him I wanted to enlist first. Foolish. He'd hissed, I didn't invest in you to have you throw it all away. To be an enlisted grunt, he had ripped the check into 4 pieces. If you choose that path, you walk it alone. My mother stood in the doorway and said nothing. His rejection hadn't broken me. It had forged me into a weapon. Now, I was aiming that weapon back at him. My command center was my wobbly kitchen table. My campaign began with quiet, meticulous intelligence gathering. I wasn't just his daughter. I was a highly trained NCO with a security clearance. I started digging into his web of shell corporations and offshore accounts. A thread appeared when I overheard NCOs complaining about a newly minted, incompetent lieutenant named Sterling, son of a Texas oil tycoon, who had miraculously graduated with honors from the crucible of the Special Forces qualification course. It was statistically impossible. Night after night, I cross-referenced names and dates. A pattern emerged. Large, lump sum payments, disguised as consulting fees, were deposited into my father's accounts shortly after certain wealthy, underperforming soldiers graduated from elite training programs. The game was rigged. My lonely investigation received an unexpected boost at a combat capabilities demonstration. My father was holding court when the legendary 4-star commander of SOCOM, General Marcus Thorne, arrived. Thorne walked right past my fawning father, his eyes scanning the area until they locked on me. He saw the faded uni tattoo on my forearm. Sergeant First Class Bishop, he said, extending his hand. It's an honor. I read your after-action report from classified operation. Quiet professional. It's soldiers like you who are the backbone of this force. In front of my ashen-faced father, the most powerful man in my professional world had just validated my entire career. The handshake was a key. A few weeks later, I was invited to apply for a prestigious instructor position at the Joint Special Operations University JSOU. I was their top candidate for the first time. I allowed myself to dream of a future free from my father's shadow. Then the door was slammed shut. A brutally short email informed me they had decided to go in a different direction. A contact on the selection committee secretly told me why. A senior consultant with a lot of pull. My father had expressed grave concerns about your psychological stability, calling me a liability risk. He couldn't beat me on merit. So he had crept into the shadows and poisoned the well. He hadn't just sabotaged my future. He had declared war. The sabotage of my JSOU job transformed my cold anger into a lethal focus. This wasn't just about his disappointment in me anymore. It was about what he was so desperate to protect. I dove into the after-action reports from Lieutenant Sterling's unit in Afghanistan. There it was. In a report designated R-15-6, an ambush in the Korangal Valley. A catastrophic tactical error by Sterling, who had ignored intelligence and led his patrol into a route known as the Death Funnel. 2 names were listed as KIA, Sergeant Mark Sully Sullivan and Sergeant First Class David Diaz. I knew them. The blood in my veins turned to ice. I cross-referenced the dates. A 7-figure wire transfer from Sterling's family had landed in my father's shell corporation. Exactly 3 weeks before Sterling graduated. The puzzle clicked into place with horrifying, sickening finality. My father hadn't just sold a fraudulent qualification, he had sold 2 men's lives for a payday. This wasn't just fraud anymore, this was murder. I contacted Major Evelyn Reed of the Army's Criminal Investigation Division. We need his own words. She told me after reviewing my evidence, we need a confession. I agreed to wear a wire. The plan was as elegant as it was ugly. 2 weeks later, my father was to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award for Integrity and Honor at the annual Patriots Gala. The day of the gala, I went to his office under the guise of offering congratulations. The bait was an appeal to his monumental ego, and he took it. On the recording I captured, his true voice emerged smug, condescending, and utterly damning. The Sterling kid's an idiot, but his father pays his bills on time, he'd said. Honor is for the little people, Carrie Ann, for the grunt who die in the dirt, for men like us. It's about results. That night, the grand ballroom of the officers' club was a sea of hypocrisy as my father stood on stage. Basking in the glow of his award for integrity, I began my slow, deliberate walk from the shadows at the back of the room. The crowd fell silent as I ascended the stage. I didn't look at my father. I walked directly to the head table and placed a single black fountain pen in front of General Thorne. It was a signal. The ballroom doors were quietly secured. Major Reed rose from her seat. The massive screen behind my father flickered. His heroic portrait replaced by an audio player. I pressed play on my phone. My father's true voice, raspy, arrogant, contemptuous, boomed through the state-of-the-art speakers. The entire ballroom heard him confess. They heard him mock the very idea of honor. A collective gasp swept the room. The color drained from my father's face as his empire of lies crumbled to dust. In real time, Major Evelyn Reed was now on the stage. Colonel Leland Bishop, she said, her voice clear and cold. You are under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and your role in the deaths of Sergeant Mark Sullivan and Sergeant First Class David Diaz. Justice didn't arrive like a thunderstorm. It came with the soft, silent click of a pen. As my father was led away in handcuffs, the glittering crowd of his friends parted before him like the Red Sea. I expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt a profound, aching void. The war was over, but the silence of the battlefield was deafening. I had won, but I had personally detonated my own family. The victory felt strangely like defeat. My father was convicted on a slew of federal charges and sentenced to decades in a place where his name and influence meant nothing. I never visited him. Some doors are meant to stay closed. My own life found a new, quieter rhythm. I accepted the instructor position at JSOU in Florida. The respect I now received was my own, untainted by anyone's shadow. But my true victory, my real emotional justice, came a year later. I was volunteering at a playground on Fort Bragg for Gold Star families, the spouses and children of soldiers killed in action. I was helping a quiet 8-year-old boy, the son of a fallen infantryman, master a particularly tricky knot. You make the rabbit hole, I said softly, guiding his small hands. The rabbit comes up the hole, goes around the big tree, and then back down. Suddenly, the loop held. His face lit up with a brilliant, triumphant smile. Wow, how are you so good at that? He asked. A genuine smile spread across my own face. A soldier taught me. I told him a long time ago. The soldier who taught me that not was my father. On a rare camping trip when I was a little older than this boy, it was one of the few untarnished good memories I had for a long time. I had tried to bury memories like that because they were too painful, but I was learning to sift through the wreckage of the past and keep the small, useful things of value. His legacy was a pile of ash and deceit. Mine would be different. It would be here in the triumphant smile of a little boy, in the quiet support I could offer these families, in the lessons of true honor I would pass on to the next generation of soldiers. Staring out at the ocean from my new home in Florida, I realized I was no longer Colonel Bishop's daughter. I was just Carrie, a soldier, a teacher, a survivor. And for the first time in my life, the path ahead was my own to chart. Carrie's journey to reclaim her honor was long and lonely. It's a story for anyone who has ever had to fight against the very people who were supposed to be their biggest Supporters, this space is where stories like ours find a voice. If her journey resonated with you, please subscribe to be part of this community, and in the comments below, tell us, what was the first step you took toward building your own self-made? Dawn, I'll be reading.